There's a specific kind of silence that only money can buy. It's not just the absence of noise, it's the absence of worry. It's thick, insulated, and smells like mahogany and polished stone. I'm sitting in that silence right now, looking out a floor-to-ceiling window that overlooks a valley I essentially own. 3 years ago, the only thing I owned was a crushing sense of inadequacy and a beat-up sedan that rattled when I went over 40. You know, people love a good underdog story. We're wired for it. We want to see the guy who was kicked in the dirt stand up and conquer the world. But usually in the movies, the hero takes the high road. He succeeds, and when his enemies come crawling back, he offers them a hand up. He shows them grace. He proves he's better than them. I need you to understand something before I tell you this story. I am not that hero. I didn't take the high road. I built a highway right over their heads, and I enjoyed every second of the demolition. My name is Julian, and 3 years ago, my family gave me a gift that changed the trajectory of my entire life. It wasn't money. It wasn't love. It was a joke. A cruel, calculated joke wrapped in gold foil. To understand why I did what I did, why I watched them beg and felt absolutely nothing, you have to understand the family dynamic. We weren't just a family. We were a hierarchy, a caste system. At the top sat my Uncle Marcus. Marcus was a hedge fund manager, a man who spoke in volume rather than substance. He believed that net worth was the only metric of a human soul. Then there was my father, Elias. He sold luxury commercial real estate. He didn't build anything. He didn't create anything. He just moved expensive things from one rich person to another and skimmed the commission. Then my siblings. My sister, Bianca, who married a tech CEO and treated her life like a curated museum exhibit. And my brother, Damon, a sales shark who thought empathy was a weakness in the market. And then, at the bottom, there was me. I was 26. I was an architect. Well, a junior draftsman, to be precise. I loved the work. I loved the geometry of it, the permanence of stone and steel. But in a family of sharks, an artist is just prey. I drove a used Honda. I lived in a studio apartment where the heating worked maybe 60% of the time. I paid my bills, I had zero debt, and I was proud of my independence. To them, I was a failure. I was the charity case, the run of the litter. It came to a head on Christmas Eve, 3 years ago. The party was at Uncle Marcus's estate. It was one of those houses that tries too hard to look like a French chateau, but just looks like a confused McMansion. Marble everywhere. Gold leaf on the ceiling. It was suffocating. Dinner was finished. We were all sitting in the grand salon, sipping brandy that cost more than my monthly rent. Marcus stood up, tapping a crystal glass with a silver spoon. The room went quiet. He had that flush in his cheeks, the look of a man who loves the sound of his own voice. He announced it was time for the yearly bonuses. That's what he called gifts. Bonuses, like we were employees in the business of being his relatives. I watched him hand out the envelopes. To my cousin Felicity, he gave a check for $25,000 to jumpstart her fashion line, a fashion line that consisted of 3 sketches and a lot of daydreaming. To my brother Damon, a check for $30,000 towards his new Porsche. To Bianca, $40,000 for a vacation fund, because apparently her 3 trips to the Maldives that year weren't enough. Then he got to me. The air in the room changed. You know that feeling when the atmospheric pressure drops right before a storm? It was like that. I saw my aunt pull out her phone, then my sister, then Damon. They were all holding them up, cameras recording, little red lights blinking like predator eyes in the dark. Marcus stood in front of me, grinning. It wasn't a warm smile. It was a smile a wolf give a lamb before the bite. For Julian, he announced, his voice booming. Because we know things have been tight. He handed me a small, heavy box. I took it. I knew it was a setup. My stomach was doing backflips. But I refused to let my hands shake. I undid the ribbon. I lifted the lid. Inside, nestled on a bed of black velvet, was a crumpled, dirty paper voucher. It was a soup kitchen ticket, a free meal voucher for the homeless shelter downtown. And underneath it, a handwritten note on expensive cardstock that read, "So you can finally eat like a king, The room exploded. It wasn't just a chuckle. It was raucous, belly-shaking laughter. My father was wiping tears from his eyes. "Good one, Marcus," he yelled. "That's actually more than he made last year." Bianca was zooming in on my face with her phone, laughing so hard she couldn't speak. "Oh my God, look at his face." "Julian, don't spend it all in one place." I stared at the voucher. I could feel the heat rising up my neck, burning my ears. I felt stripped naked. It wasn't just the insult. It was the coordination. They had planned this. They had discussed it. They had prepared the cameras. They wanted a reaction. They wanted me to cry or scream or storm out. They wanted content for their group chat. They wanted confirmation that I was the emotional, unstable failure they claimed I was. So I didn't give it to them. I took a breath. I forced my heart rate down. I looked up at Marcus and I smiled. "Thank you, Uncle Marcus," I said, my voice steady. "It's very thoughtful of you to worry about my nutrition." I folded the voucher, put it in my pocket, and took a sip of my coffee. The laughter died down, replaced by a confused murmur. They looked disappointed. My father frowned, almost annoyed that the show was over so quickly. I stayed for another hour. I made small talk. I ate the dessert. And then I drove home to my freezing apartment, sat on the edge of my bed, and stared at that voucher. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I made a vow. I pinned that voucher to the wall above my drafting desk. And I decided that the next time I saw my family, the dynamic would be different. I wasn't going to just succeed. I was going to eclipse them. The next 3 years were a blur of violence. Not physical violence, but violence against my own limits. I stopped existing as a person. I became a machine. I quit my job at the firm and started my own consultancy. But I didn't just design houses. I found a niche. I specialize in distressed asset revitalization. Basically, I found commercial buildings that were failing, bought them with aggressive loans, redesigned them into high-end tech hubs or luxury eco-lofts, and flipped them before the ink was dry. I worked 20 hours a day. I slept under my desk. I ate protein bars and instant coffee. I lost friends. I didn't date. I missed birthdays. I missed holidays. When my mother called to ask why I wasn't coming to Easter, I told her I was working double shifts at a diner. Let them think I was struggling. Let them think I was drowning. It was safer that way. The first year, I broke even. The second year, I made my first million. By the middle of the third year, I had a portfolio worth 8 figures. I bought land, not just any land, a cliffside acreage 3 towns over. I designed the house myself. Brutalist architecture, lots of concrete, glass, and steel. A fortress. I installed a gate that looked like it belonged on a military base. And the whole time, I kept tabs on them. See, the thing about people like my family, people who build their lives on leverage and flash, is that they are fragile. They look strong, but they are made of glass. Uncle Marcus was running a fund that was highly leveraged in speculative tech. My father was living paycheck to paycheck on a massive scale, leasing cars he couldn't afford to project an image of success. Bianca's husband was gambling with company funds. I watched the markets turn. I watched the interest rates hike. I watched the dominoes start to wobble. And then, about 6 months ago, they fell. It started with Marcus. The SEC started investigating his fund for irregularities. Investors panicked and pulled out. The fund collapsed. He lost everything. The estate, the cars, the reputation. Then my father. The luxury real estate market dried up overnight. No sales meant no commissions. The leases were called in. He was evicted from his penthouse. One by one, they toppled. It was like watching a slow-motion demolition. I didn't lift a finger to cause it. I just watched, and I waited. I knew they would come. I knew they would find me. Last week, the buzzer on my gate rang. I was in my study, reviewing blueprints. I checked the security feed. There they were. Uncle Marcus, looking 10 years older, his suit rumpled. My father, pacing nervously. Bianca, without her designer sunglasses, looking pale. Damon, looking like he hadn't slept in a week. My aunt, my cousin, The whole cast of characters from that Christmas party, standing in the rain outside my fortress. I watched them for a full minute before I pressed the intercom. Yes, I said. My uncle's voice crackled through the speaker. Julian? Is it you? It's Marcus. I can see that, I said. What do you want? We need to talk, son. It's a family emergency. I buzzed the pedestrian gate open. Just the pedestrian gate. They had to leave their cars outside. I watched them walk up the long, winding driveway in the drizzle, dragging their luggage. I met them at the front door. I didn't invite them in. I stood in the doorway, blocking the warmth from escaping. Julian, my father started, putting on his best salesman smile, though it wavered. My God, this place, did you design this? It's incredible. We had no idea. What do you want? I repeated. My aunt stepped forward, tears already welling up. We've lost it all, Julian. Everything. The bank took the house. Marcus's, their legal fees. Your father was evicted. We have nowhere to go. And you came here because your family. Bianca blurted out. We heard you were doing well. Mom saw your name in an architectural digest or something. We didn't know how well, but Julian, we're sleeping in motels. We're out of cash. We just need a place to land, Marcus said, trying to regain some authority. Just for a few months. Until we get back on our feet. You have so much room here. We wouldn't be a burden. I looked at them. Really looked at them. 3 years ago, I was a joke. Now I was their lifeboat. I leaned against the doorframe. You want to move in? Please, my cousin whispered. I let a silence stretch out. I saw the hope rising in their eyes. They thought they had me. They thought I was the same soft Julian who just wanted to be accepted. I'll think about it, I said. Think about it, my father snapped. We're your flesh and blood. What is there to think about? I'll think about it. I said again, colder this time. But if I'm going to help you, there are conditions. I'm not running a charity. If you want my help, you play by my rules. Anything, Marcus said quickly. Name it. I'll email you the list. I said, check your inbox in an hour. Now, please, get off my property. I closed the door in their faces. I watched on the monitor as they argued, gestured at the house, and eventually trudged back down the driveway to their cars. Then, I sat down and wrote the list. This is where some of you might think I'm cruel. And you're right. I am. But remember the voucher. Remember the laughter. Here were my conditions. Condition 1. Every single family member seeking assistance must write a handwritten letter, minimum 1,000 words, detailing exactly how they have treated me over the last decade. They must acknowledge specific instances of bullying, neglect, and mockery. No generalizations. No, I'm sorry if you felt bad. Specifics. Condition 2. They must record a video apology. Individual videos. No cuts. They have to look into the camera and admit that they were wrong, that they were cruel, and that they are now dependent on the person they mocked. Condition 3. Full financial transparency. I want to see bank statements. I want to see exactly where the money went. I want to see how much Uncle Marcus gave Bianca for her vacation fund while I was eating ramen. Condition 4. A family meeting. Here, in my living room, where I will review their submissions and make my final decision. I sent the email. I expected them to refuse. I expected my father to tell me to go to hell. But desperation is a powerful drug. 48 hours later, a courier arrived with a heavy envelope. I sat by the fire with a glass of whiskey, real whiskey, not the cheap stuff, and I read. God, it was pathetic. My father's letter was a masterpiece of deflection. I was only trying to toughen you up. The world is hard, Julian, and I wanted you to be ready. I pushed you because I saw potential. Lies. He pushed me because I was an easy target. Bianca's letter was sheer narcissism. I know I teased you, but that's just what siblings do. I was jealous of your freedom, maybe. But Uncle Marcus, his letter was different. It was raw. He wrote about his own brother, a man named Silas I'd never heard of. Apparently, Silas was a screw-up who drained their parents' savings and vanished. Marcus wrote that every time he looked at me, quiet, artistic, different, he saw Silas. He admitted that he punished me for the sins of a ghost. He admitted that he wanted to break me, so I wouldn't become a burden. I realize now, he wrote, that in trying to prevent you from becoming a failure, I became a monster. I watched the videos. My father looked angry, his jaw tight. Bianca cried, but she checked a reflection in the camera lens twice. Marcus looked broken, a man who had lost his kingdom, and realized his crown was made of tinfoil. They had done it. They had stripped themselves of their dignity. They had danced for me. So I called a meeting. Saturday at 2 p.m. They arrived promptly. No arrogance this time. They walked into my living room, a massive space with concrete walls and modern art, and sat on the edges of the sofas like terrified children. I didn't offer them drinks. I didn't offer them food. I stood in front of the fireplace, holding their letters. I've read your submissions, I said, and my father asked, his voice tight, can we move in? We have the truck loaded. We can be here by tonight. I appreciate your honesty, I continued, ignoring him. It was illuminating. Uncle Marcus, your story about Silas was touching. Truly. Marcus nodded, looking down at his hands. It's the truth, Julian. And Dad, I turned to him. The idea that you were toughening me up, interesting strategy. It worked, didn't it? My father grunted. Look at you. You're successful. You're rich. Maybe you should be thanking me. The room went silent. Even Bianca looked at him like he was insane. I laughed. A dry, humorless sound. Thank you? I asked. You want gratitude? I reached into my jacket pocket. I have something for you, I said. I pulled out the voucher. I had kept it. I had laminated it. It was preserved in perfect, pristine condition. The cheap paper, the stark font, one free meal, St. Jude Shelter. I held it up. Do you remember this? I asked. Marcus flinched like I'd slapped him. My father stared at it, his face turning red. 3 years ago, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. You stood in a room much grander than this, and you laughed. You handed me this piece of trash, and you told me it was what I was worth. You filmed it. You shared it. Julian, please. My aunt sobbed. That was a mistake. We're sorry. We said we were sorry. I looked at this voucher every day. I told them. Every morning when I woke up at 4 a.m. Every night when I slept under my desk. This was my fuel. I didn't build this empire to have a nice house. I didn't build it to be comfortable. I built it specifically for this moment. I walked over to the coffee table and placed a voucher in the center like a centerpiece. You want to know if you can move in? I said. You want to know if I'm going to save you? They leaned forward. The hunger in their eyes was palpable. I have the space, I said. I have the money. I could write a check right now that would clear all your debts and set you up for life. It wouldn't even dent my savings. Bianca let out a breath of relief. Oh, thank God. Julian, thank you. We promise we'll... But I'm not going to... I interrupted. The air left the room. What? My brother Damon whispered. No, I said. No money. No housing. No help. You can't be serious, my father roared, standing up. After we wrote those damn letters? After we begged? You sadistic little. Sit down. I snapped. My voice echoed off the concrete walls. It was the first time I had ever raised my voice at him. He sat. You wanted to teach me a lesson about the real world. I said, well, I learned it. The real world doesn't care about your apologies. The real world doesn't care if you're family. In the real world, you reap what you sow. I pointed at the door. You have 10 minutes to vacate my property. If you are still here at 2:15, I will call the police and have you arrested for trespassing. And don't think I won't. I have the security footage of this entire meeting. I have your letters admitting your abuse. Try to spin this in the press. Try to play the victim, and I will release every single video and letter to the public. I will show the world exactly who you are. My uncle stood up slowly. He looked gray. He looked like a ghost. You're right, he said softly. Marcus, shut up, my father yelled. Julian, you can't do this. He can, Marcus said. And he should. Marcus looked at me. There was no hate in his eyes anymore. Just a profound, hollow sadness. We created you, Julian. This coldness. We built it brick by brick. We have no one to blame but ourselves. He turned and walked out. One by one, they followed. Bianca was crying hysterically. Damon looked like he was going to vomit. My father stopped at the door, glaring at me with pure hatred. "You're dead to me," he spat. "I was dead to you 3 years ago," I replied. I just finally returned the favor. And then he was gone. That was a week ago. The fallout has been messy. My mother showed up a few times, cry at the gate, try and play the "I was a victim too" card. I didn't open the gate. I know she was there that Christmas. I know she laughed too. Silence is compliance. My brother tried to come back drunk, screaming threats. I let the sprinklers turn on. He left. Uncle Marcus and my aunt moved to Nevada. He got a job managing a hardware store. It's humble work. Honest work. I almost respect him for it. My father is filing for bankruptcy. He's living in a studio apartment smaller than the one I had. I hear he spends his time at the local bar, telling anyone who will listen about his ungrateful son who stole his legacy. And me? I'm standing here, looking out at the valley. I have the voucher frame now. It's hanging in the hallway, right next to my degree. I wish I could tell you that I feel a sense of profound peace. I wish I could say that revenge healed the wound. It didn't. The wound is still there, but it's cauterized now. There is a hollowness to victory like this. When you spend your life running on spite, the engine stalls when you finally cross the finish line. I have the house. I have the money. I have the power. And I have the silence. It's lonely. I won't lie to you. It's incredibly lonely. But then I think about that Christmas party. I think about the laughter. I think about the look in my uncle's eyes when he handed me that box. And I realize that I would rather be lonely in a fortress of my own making than be a punchline in someone else's joke. They wanted to know what I was worth. Now they know, and the price of admission is closed.